Shalom, shalom to all my fellow brothers and sisters out there. It's me again, Damian Powell from YeshuaSavesAll.com. Peace be to you, the name of our Father, Yahweh, and our Master, the Son of Yahweh, Yeshua HaMashiach. So today, my brothers and sisters, we're going to be talking about Zadokite priests, or the Zadok priests. A day is from evening to evening, part 3. All right, so over the past 2 years, I've written messages and done 2 videos about the topic of when does a day begin and end. So if you have not seen those videos, I strongly encourage you to check those out. It's in the playlist. You'll see it in my playlist that I have. So, however, this topic has been heating up again, and I would like to present some more evidence to prove that a day is from evening to evening, just as those other 2 messages that I've done. This time I will use a book called The New Covenant of Damascus. All right. And also I'll be quoting from an article, as another witness. But before quoting from the book, I would like to explain who wrote the Damascus Covenant. Okay, so we're going to be looking in the book titled The Meaning of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I've shown this one before. This book right here. The Meaning of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, on page number 215, under the section titled The Damascus Document, says, quote, in 1896, Solomon Schechter of Cambridge University, working with texts from a Geniza in Cairo, identified a full copy, 16 columns, and a smaller one, 2 columns paralleling to some extent columns 7 through 8 in the longer one, of a work that he called fragments of a Zadokite work. A Zadokite work. So the Covenant of Damascus, or the Damascus Covenant, is a Zadokite work. Okay. Then in the 1950s, fragmentary remains of the same work were found at Qumran. Okay, so they were discovered at the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. 8 copies in Cave 4, 1 in Cave 5, 1 in Cave 6. Some of these copies preserve the beginning and the end of the text, which are missing from the Geniza versions. Okay, so this is amazing. Now we go a little further down, and the same paragraph, it states, the Damascus document falls into 2 principal parts. First is a scripturally based admonition in which a teacher urges the sons of light, which is the Zadok priests, to separate from the wicked, which we know as the sons of darkness, speaks of the origins of the group 390 years after Jerusalem's destruction by Nebuchadnezzar, draws lessons from biblical history, warns about the 3 nets of Belial, fornication, wealth, defilement of the sanctuary, and threatens punishments for those who prove unfaithful to the new covenant. The second part is a legal section in which one finds a list of transgressors, rules about Zadokite priests, skin diseases, feminine kinds of impurity, and laws connected with crops, purity, impurity, oaths, marriages, business transactions, purification, the Shabbat, the temple and temple city, blasphemers, Gentiles, and foods. So, why is this important? Why is this important that this is a Zadokite writing? Because it's as we read before, Ezekiel chapter 44, verse 15. However, the priests, who are Levites and descendants of Zadok, who took care of my sanctuary, when the people of Israel went astray from me, they are the ones who will approach me and serve me. It is they who will attend me and offer me the fat and the blood, says Yahweh Elohim. They will enter my sanctuary, approach my table to minister to me and perform my service. This is why it's important. And I discussed this in the Passover, the Pesach message as well, is that the Zadok priests are the righteous covenant keepers and the ones who serve Yahweh without turning to the left or the right. Okay, and it is the Zadokite priests who lived at Qumran. Therefore, being that the priests ministered before Yahweh and kept track of the calendar and time, it would be important to see what they have to say about how they reckon time. And when does a day end and begin? It's important. So, let's go to the Damascus Covenant. And this one was translated by Ken Johnson. On page 45, under the section titled The Weekly Shabbat. And it states the following, quote, guard the Shabbat according to its law. No man is to do work on the sixth day from sunset. Let me read it again. Guard the Shabbat according to its law. No man is to do work on the sixth day from sunset, when the diameter of the sun can still just be seen above the horizon. For that is what he said, guard the Shabbat day to keep it Kodesh, set apart. Exodus 20, verse 8, Deuteronomy 5, verse 12. Okay, so he says, it states no man is to do work from the sixth day from sunset, not sunrise, when the diameter of the sun can still just be seen above the horizon. Okay, so now, firstly, we can clearly see that the Zadokite priests recognize sunset as the indicator to stop work. As the passage says, no man is to do work on the sixth day from sunset, because once the sun sets, it is the start of the next day. And notice there is no mention of sunrise being the indicator. Okay, now, and here the emphasis is on the sixth day. They're placing emphasis on the sixth day because when the sun sets, it would be the start of the seventh day, which is the Shabbat. Okay, they're placing the emphasis on this so that no one would profane the Shabbat. But they did not stop there. They did not stop there. Okay, they did not stop there in case anyone would be in doubt, because we are given more detail to make sure that we can understand that the Zadok priests were emphasizing sunset as the end of the day and the start of another, as we read, when the diameter of the sun can still just be seen over the horizon. When the diameter of the sun can still just be seen over the horizon. So, what is the definition of diameter? According to qmath.com, says, quote, in a circle, diameter is a line that passes through the center and meets the circumference at opposite ends. It is twice as long as that of the radius of the circle. In other words, the diameter of a circle is the line that passes through the center and divides the circle into equal parts. Hallelujah. So, the sun is a circle, right? And when you draw a line, the diameter through the middle of the circle, the circular sun, dividing it into equal parts, what do you get? You get a visual of the sun setting on the horizon. You get a visual of the sun setting on the horizon. The Damascus Covenant also gives us an illustration next to this passage, which literally shows the sun setting on the horizon. So, it's right here. You can see it. This is concerning the weekly Shabbat, and you can see it right there. know it's kind of blurry, but it says sunset. Okay. Sunset. Now, the reason why I wanted to show that is this is a perfect match with the Odeo. This is a perfect match with the Odeo, which is the ancient pictograph Hebrew language that existed before Paleo-Hebrew and modern Hebrew. Okay, and that letter is Kuf. Okay, right here. Kuf. And Kuf is a picture of the sun on the horizon. And it means time, condense, circle, cycle as Moedim, which is the appointed times, and light. The light means growing or diminishing. And we see that the Zadok priest made it clear that the light in this instance was diminishing to end the day and not growing for sunrise. Our Father Yahweh does not do anything by coincidence, and he has given us the truth right in plain sight, okay? And it's another reason why I love the Odeo, and it's important because the pictures cannot be changed or distorted, thus allowing it to retain the original meaning that our Father Yahweh was given to his people. And as we can see, one of the meanings of Kuf is time, which is a reference that the setting of the sun shows us what time the day is ending and another begins. Hallelujah. So it's absolutely beautiful. Now, let us now view a quote from Josephus and two other translations of the Damascus Covenant to see if it is consistent with what we just read above. Okay, so in an article written by Bill and Karen Bishop titled Evening or Morning, from returning to the garden.com. Returning to the garden.com states this, quote, "The works of Josephus, complete, unabridged by William Whiston. The Wars of the Jews, Book 4, Chapter 9, Verse 12, 582. And this is page 691 through 692. One of the priests stood, of course, and gave a signal beforehand with a trumpet. At the beginning of every seventh day in the evening twilight." Again, at the beginning of every seventh day in the evening twilight. As also at the evening when the day was finished. So he gives us great detail right there in two places. At the beginning of every seventh day in the evening. So he's saying that in the evening is the start of the seventh day at twilight. As also at evening when the day is finished. So he says that the day is over when the sun sets in the evening. As giving notice to the people when they were to leave off work. So I'll just read the whole thing all the way through. At the beginning of every seventh day in the evening twilight, as also at the evening when the day was finished, as giving notice to the people when they were to leave off work, and when they were to go to work again. So this was what was being observed in the days of Josephus. Maybe this is one thing they should not have changed. But was this simply rabbinical? Question mark. Okay. So they're asking, was this a rabbinical tradition that that Josephus is quoting about? So, continuing with the article, quote, "What do the Dead Sea Scrolls say?" We have quoted directly from two different translations of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Each translation uses a subtitle before the actual quote. So these subtitles are shown before the text of each quote. So they go on to say, "The Dead Sea Scrolls by Michael Wise, Martin Abegg Jr., and Edward Cook, under the second part of the Damascus document called the Statutes, and fragment 10 of 4Q 270, page 68, about the Shabbat, how to keep it properly. A man may not work on the sixth day from the time that the solar orb is above the horizon by its diameter. So there we go with diameter again. Because this is what is meant by the passage, quote, observe the Shabbat day to keep it set apart. Deuteronomy 5:12. Okay. Then the complete Dead Sea Scrolls in English by Penguin Classics. Under the second part of the Damascus document called Statutes in Fragment 10 of 4Q 270, page 141, concerning the Shabbat to observe it according to its law. No man shall work on the sixth day from the moment when the sun's orb is distant by its own fullness from the gate wherein it sinks. No man shall work on the sixth day from the moment when the sun's orb is distant by its own fullness from the gate wherein it sinks. For this is what is said, observe the Shabbat day to keep it set apart. Deuteronomy, verse 12. Well, we know that's Deuteronomy 5:12. The text we quoted is drawn from Zadokite fragments, or the Damascus document. This particular segment relates to the Shabbat code and how they observed it. This segment of the scroll showed their orientation to Deuteronomy 5, verse 12. Being the Zadokite fragments, it should be obvious that those who used the Zadokite calendar would have used this interpretation regarding the Shabbat observance. The Zadokite priesthood was fastidicious, meaning very attentive to and concerned about accuracy and detail, about specifications and precise restrictions relative to statutes. This specific wording was in a section of the scroll, sometimes called the statutes. So these fragments would have been engineered to provide an exact snapshot of the precise timing for Shabbat to begin for the community. Okay, end quote. That's the end of that article right there. So an exact snapshot, which I showed there. Kuf, right? And then again, which I showed on page 45 in the Damascus document. I know it's kind of blurry, but sunset. Okay, it's the same picture. The same picture. So they gave us a snapshot of the precise timing for Shabbat to begin for their community. So, like I said, it's important to point out that the Damascus Covenant is a Zadokite writing. So, therefore, they were very detailed in what they did. They were very precise because they wanted to make sure that nobody profaned the Shabbat. This is why they gave these details. So, let's go on further here. Again, as we saw from the Penguin Classics translation, it said, no man shall work on the sixth day from the moment when the sun's orb is distant by its own fullness from the gate wherein it sinks. Notice that this translation says the sun is sinking, meaning going down, and not rising as coming up. And then, as I showed from Ken Johnson's translation, the one that I have, he said sunset. Okay, and not sunrise. And by this, there would be no confusion on the issue. It is clear that the Zadokite priests paid so much attention to detail that they literally gave us a painting of the sun setting on the horizon by their words to make sure that the Shabbat would not be profane. And as a brother in Yeshua said, when the sun sets, the sun gets the final say in our day, as it ends one day and starts another. So I completely agree with that. And as I've shown from 3 different translations, of the Damascus covenant, it all says the same thing. And then we have the quote from Josephus as well. So let's look at the Samaritans. The last witness I would like to add is the Samaritans, regardless about how some people may feel about the Samaritans. The Samaritans reject the oral Torah, and the Samaritans reject the Talmud. Okay? Yet they still recognize that a day is from evening to evening. So if Judaism was completely wrong, wouldn't they have rejected evening to evening from morning to morning doctrine? The thing is this: we cannot reject the truth simply because Judaism is doing it, as some well-meaning Torah-observing communities do. Okay? As the saying goes, they will throw out the baby with the bathwater. And that's not something we can do without examining the evidence. Okay, so the Samaritans follow a strict observance of the Shabbat. The Samaritans follow a strict observance of the Shabbat, which means that they want to make sure that they do everything properly. Okay, a rabbi named Simeon ben Gamliel commented on the Samaritans saying, quote, "They were as Israelites in all things. They were as Israelites in all things and kept the law and the precepts of it, and even more exactly than the Israelites themselves did." Unquote. So look at that. Benjamin Zadokite, the translator of the Samaritan Torah, writes the following in the footnote of Exodus chapter 31, verse 14, saying, quote, 31:14, "And you are to keep the Shabbat, for it is set apart to you. Till present times, the Israelite Samaritans have kept the Shabbat as it is written in a strict way." And remember, that's what that the rabbi said about the Samaritans, okay? So that they follow the Torah even more exact. So he says they keep the Shabbat as it is written in a strict way. On Friday afternoon, preparations for the Shabbat begins. Okay, so they start prepping for the Shabbat on Friday afternoon. Preparations for the Shabbat begins, including washing and purifying the body and changing the weekday clothes to Shabbat clothes. The clothing for men includes a long sleeve, floor-length robe in different colors, thick for the winter time and light for the spring and summertime. When entering the synagogue, heads are covered. The priests wear red turbans on weekdays and white turbans on the Shabbat. The women of the family, along with the children, prepare the Friday evening meal, which we will call preparation day, right, on the 6th day. The Friday evening meal, when the Shabbat draws near, the cooked food is taken off the stove and covered by a thick blanket. At the synagogue, they pray passages from the Torah related to the Shabbat and sing Friday evening prayers of various hymns. Hallelujah. So as we can see, the Samaritan women and children prepare the Shabbat meal on Friday afternoon, and they take the food off of the stove when the Shabbat is drawing near, meaning before sunset. Because Friday evening is the start of the 7th day Shabbat, and they believe in the strict observance of cook what you will cook, boil what you will boil, right? And as the Aramaic says, leave the rest cold to the morning. That's why they did it. Also, Benjamin states that they go into the synagogue to read scriptures from the Torah on the Shabbat, starting Friday evening, which clearly shows that the Samaritans also recognize that a day shifts to the next when the sun sets. I bring all this up to show that the observance of a scriptural day being from evening to evening is not some oral Torah, rabbinical Judaism invention, but rather the Zadok priest, who faithfully followed Yahweh, spelled this out in detail. Josephus was a witness to it, and also the Samaritans agree and still observe it this way to this day. In conclusion, we can see that this is actually one that Judaism got right. And this would add, they would add a fourth witness to all the information being presented, that a day is from evening to evening and not morning to morning. Hallelujah. So as always, may our Father Yahweh Barak bless you in Yeshua HaMashiach's name. Shalom.